fantastic. You know, if I catch them, I'm a little sniper. We're good to go anytime, man. Amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, today my special guest, Robin Black, for the second time.
Yeah.
I haven't seen you, bro, since the show March 8th. The world came to a sudden standstill, and everything was up in limbo. And I was kind of hoping to bring you in to recap, and then we had some time away from each other. I missed you dearly.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here, man.
Yeah,
it's fun chatting and it's fun sharing ideas, but I just wanted to see you. I just want to come
that
see you.
was great. It worked. The timing was perfect.
Yeah,
So what have you been doing, man?
Man, March
World
8th
stop.
was the last live event I did. You know, it was Sunday night. Brilliant night of fights.
Yeah.
We commentated it live. And the very next day I got on a plane and I went to Connecticut to cover and analyze and do pre and post stuff around Bellator. And on the 12th, which was the Thursday, they said, hey, this COVID thing seems real. No audience. And the fights are on the 13th. And on that afternoon, they even canceled the fights. So we all just booked home. And it was crazy. Like, it feels like, what's that? You know, April, May, June. It's almost 4 months ago. Like in a week, that'll be 4 months. But at that time, it was so, you know, everything is shutting and you're wondering about travel and you're wondering about, you know, how dangerous is this? How everyone's going to behave? You know, at the beginning of these things too, you worry about other people. Are people going to be like, you know, acting crazy, stealing cars? So I literally rented a car and I just booked it 8 hours straight home from Connecticut.
You didn't even fly
I just
home.
didn't even fly because my flight was 20 hours later. And Connecticut's weird. The little casino there, it's strange. You got to take it's, you know, an hour and a half straight line flight from Toronto, but you end up taking 2 flights, ends up being 6-7 hour day. I was home 12 hours before I was even leaving. Just got in a car, drove straight home. And yeah, since then it's been a weird, you know, the weirdest time of any of our adult lives, for sure.
How's it affected you? Has it affected you mentally? I mean, a lot of people have, their whole perspective on everything has changed now.
For sure.
People are scared. There's people that said, fuck it, it's a bullshit, it's a scam. You know, there's so many mixed feelings. Not having an outlet to train. Not having an outlet to work. I mean, this is your bread and butter, what you do.
So right away, like most people, you probably lose something. Something changes that you like or you value or is important to you or your job. The biggest one that quickly hit me, I was supposed to be commentating for the Olympics, for a big broadcaster for the Olympics, taekwondo, boxing, and karate. So, and that was a big job. It was the kind of job that, you know, you're excited to tell your parents about when they took you to train taekwondo as a little kid, and now you're commentating taekwondo. So that one went right away, and I knew it was real and a couple other things. But I'm lucky, man. Like, you know, the last 5 years, I've specialized my job analyzing martial arts and making other related entertainment. I've moved my entire business over to digital. And most of my work is like taking existing moments and then enriching it or analyzing it or they call it repurposing it. So now there's no fights in the world. But people still need content. They still need it digitally, and they need it to be repurposed old stuff. So I'm really busy. Like, I'm really busy doing what I love to do, and you get to do it different. You get to innovate a bit. You have to try new things. So from a work standpoint, it's been good. I've been busy. I'm lucky. Like, I'm luckier than most. That's for sure. And then from a mental life standpoint, it's funny because literally I'll be like, you know, how's this affected you? Or how are you doing with this? And we'll answer like it's one thing. But 4 months, a long time. Most of us have had really good times, really dicey times, uncertainty. You know, I kind of feel like the world is always uncertain. We just didn't really know. We just weren't really paying attention.
It really showed how vulnerable we are.
Yeah, but I think it's always like that. So March 13th happens, and in the next number of weeks, we're like, oh my God, like our structures, our work, our environment, you know, our relationships, all of these things are so volatile. The world is so uncertain. And my feeling right away was, it always is. We just convinced ourselves it's certain. We're always in uncertainty. We're always one meteorite strike away from everything going crazy. We're always one world war away from, like, the world is precarious. And so my feeling right away was like, this shouldn't be a shock. I've kind of always lived in a line of thinking that we're lucky for every day we have. We're lucky for everything the way it is. You know.
So you have this soul to you that is like, Nothing affects me. I'm pretty much roll with every punch that happens. I love you. I love you. I love you. You're kind of like you always have positive energy. It's always going positive. It's always, no matter what. I've never seen you.
90%, and that's perspective. I think some of that is
because I see people. I see trolls online.
Yeah.
I see people say shit to you sometimes,
sure.
and I think I even message you saying, "Listen, don't let people suck you into this shit because that's what they do."
Well, my default now. My default reaction to people who are negative, really negative, angry or provocative or rude, and when I say default, that's what I am like most of the time now. And naturally, although naturally is probably the wrong word because it took work. Took work training my brain and looking at the world and being honest about how I see the world. But I literally, when somebody's angry or rude to me, I feel badly for them. And I don't mean it in a rude, kind of condescending way. I mean, I literally know from my own experience, the only times I'm angry or rude to somebody is when I'm in some kind of pain. So, the 1 in 100, the 1% of the time that I will be a dick to somebody. And maybe it's 6% of the time, but it's small compared to...
One went to 6.
Yeah,
okay,
maybe it's 6%.
But that's okay.
Maybe it's 11%, but it's not a lot.
You said it right. Yeah. You are human.
Yeah.
Right?
Most of the time, I am empathetic and I care about other people and I'm concerned with other people. Not all the time, because I'm human. Like, we're all human. We're all going to be assholes. We're all going to be weird, and we're all going to be a little fragile, and we're all going to be a little dicey sometimes. But a lot of the time, my feeling is this person's in pain. There's nobody's going through the world pausing to write a note on this podcast, on a YouTube comment, and say, these guys are idiots, fuck these guys, if their life is good. There's no chance of that. There's nobody whose life is excellent who is currently on this, leaving a comment on this YouTube podcast or tweeting us to say, fuck you guys, if their life is good. So I know that. And again, I know that from personal experience. On the rare occasions where I'm rude or mean or angry or combative, I'm probably in pain. I'm stressed or nervous about something, or something happened to my family or my life, or I'm scared. That's when I act that way. So clearly other people are acting that way when they feel like that. And this is something I see that we tend to do, we humans. If you are cut off in traffic and you say, fuck you, and you freak out, and somebody said, why are you doing that? You would find an explanation. You'd be like, man, my dog is sick. I'm late for work. My mom was upset today. I'm worried that my job is precarious. You would find an explanation.
You're already on edge. So it's easier to take it out on someone.
Exactly. And whenever we do that, we will find our reason to say it. I didn't yell at somebody or be rude because I'm an asshole. I did it because there are outside circumstances that made me act this way. But when someone else does it, we often go, see, they're showing their true colors. That guy is clearly a dick. That person right there is a mean, terrible person. Right. And we do that. We all do something bad, and we all say it's okay because there's extenuating circumstances. But when someone else does it, we point and say, this shows you who these people are.
Look at your fault. Look. You're not perfect.
You are bad.
Yeah.
I don't care how many good things you did this week. I've seen the true you, and you are your worst moment. And right now you're having it, and that's you. If we do the opposite, and when we act up, we go, shit, that was real. I was mean. I said something bad, or I did something bad. I was mean. And then when we see somebody else do it, we cut them the slack. We go, they were clearly upset or frightened or nervous or agitated or stressed, and they didn't even know it. Our life becomes way easier when we hold ourselves to the harder judgment and we hold other people to the easier judgment. And when you do that, like all of a sudden things are a little easier going. Like you're a little less stressed about things. You're a little less angry, a little less combative. Not every fight is a fight you have to win. And I know what I'm saying from experience makes life more comfortable and easier and easier going and stuff. But I can't do it all the time because I'm human. But if you can do it a lot of the time, your life's probably pretty good, and the people around you's life will be pretty good too.
Mm-hmm. Do you find it harder being kind of in more of the spotlight? Do you know what I'm saying? Like a lot of eyes are on you. What you do is, I mean, you're kind of an ambassador for the MMA community for Canada. So having all that pressure of all these people looking at you, you're constantly under criticism no matter what you say, no matter what you do, because you're Robin Black. If you had been Joe Schmo and said the same things, the reaction could be completely different. Like, do you find being in that position that you're in now, you have some sort of responsibility for the things that you say? Or do you have to watch what you say? Do you have to overthink? It's bad enough that you got to analytically think about watching fights and breaking everything down, never mind hurting somebody's feelings because a post went out on a wrong day when really you were spreading love and compassion and caring to keep people need energy to keep themselves going, man. It's troublesome times right now.
Yeah, for sure. So I don't feel pressure to do it because I'm just some guy. Like the fact that if 100,000 people followed me on a platform or something, that's a compliment. And that's cool. And I'm thankful, but I don't think that makes me have to behave a certain way. And I also think, I truly believe that once you start thinking about trying to do or say or act in a way that people will look at a certain way, you actually undermine your ability to do anything. I think the most real thing you can do is be as real as you can. And it's very easy to say that, but it's very hard to kind of do that. And I think that's all what we're all trying to actually do is, who the fuck are we actually? Like, who am I? What do I care about? What do I think about? And the only way you can do that is not being worried about what you might say or crafting it right. And it's funny. It's a funny one, man. You're bringing up a really interesting thing, something I think about a lot. I see people on TV and they get asked a question. Fighters, let's use fighters because that's in our arena, that's our area of specialty. We'll see a fighter get asked a question, how'd your fight go tonight? And they'll say, well, I got a lot of opportunities to go in there and show what I do. And on tonight, and then all of a sudden they snap into an American Idol contestant. They're saying crafted things that they think are right to say, but it's not real. And it's not their fault. They think they're doing
they're groomed and conditioned.
Yeah, but even that, the idea of, what do they call it? Media training. Media training to me is, let's make you not quite you. To me, the best human being, whether we're interviewing a fighter, we're talking to a person on a podcast, we see somebody at the store, the best human being is the authentic human being. Who is that person? Because we're all imperfect, but we're all interesting. Everybody's really interesting. The least interesting people are the people who go through the motions. They become a mechanical human. And for some reason, we think that's the way to represent ourselves properly. But I believe that's the least proper way to represent yourself. I believe it's also the least functional. I think it'll give you the least results and rewards. And I think actually being honest is really powerful. And in a world, when I say this, we live in a world where people are lying a lot. I'm not accusing any individual. I just mean when we turn the television on and we have, whether it's Fox or CNN or NBC or ESPN, it doesn't matter. We've got two human beings dressed in costumes behaving in the way that they think we're supposed to behave. To me, that's lying. It may not be insidious. They're not trying to do anything bad, but we're in a world where people are acting and lying.
You're a character.
You're a character. You're created. You think you should be a particular way. And when we do, in that world, the truth is really fucking powerful. And the truth is really compelling.
That's why they're on you so fast when you make a mistake and go, see, you're the true asshole.
But you are in that moment. You're just a person doing person stuff. And then when you fuck up, you have to be okay with that. And not everybody else has to do, because people are expecting a character. They're in whatever level, whether you have 100,000 followers somewhere or 100 million or 900, but they happen to be in your business and they happen to be in your space, or you're in the same field as them. People are looking at each other. But I really think being who you are is the best thing you can do. And when you do that, I think you get the most honest scenario. and I think you have the most, you learn the most. People, it's possible to share the most, you can inspire somebody or make somebody angry, but you can be, that honesty I think is important. I think we spend a lot of time picking a team, and you vote for that guy and I vote for the other guy, and then we get mad at each other. And then I consume all the information from my team and you consume all the information from your team. And it shapes us into behaving and thinking a certain way. And the weird part about it is, for the most part, everybody on the one team is like, those guys are crazy. They've been brainwashed. They've been tricked by the news. And everybody on that team is like, those guys. And the truth is, both y'all have. Everybody has. There's no blue and red and conservative and liberal and whatever. You're just people, but you've been brainwashed. Everything you think about the other side, everything you think about them, they're nuts, they're lunatics, they clearly don't understand, they've got bad information, is also true of you. And it's that mechanical nature, I think, that's really bad. And I think when humans are more individual, we all are very similar, but we're all also individual. There's absolutely no way that 50% of you should believe one thing about abortion and 50% of you should believe the other. And because you believe that one thing about abortion, you should also believe this one thing about global warming and this one. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah. That makes zero sense. But we're doing that. And the reason we get caught up in that is we're not being authentic individuals. We're playing characters and we're playing roles, and then we think it's normal and we think we're being ourselves.
Yeah, that's why they say the left wing and the right wing they're connected to the same bird.
It's the same fucking bird.
It's the same bird.
It's the same bird.
You guys are arguing over the same thing, same principle. You both have things on either side that you both like. But
for sure.
It's competition, man. People like to be competitive.
For sure. And I think we've sort of lost the track of actually what we might be our purpose. I think our purpose is to sort of live a really good life, make some things of value, learn some stuff. Maybe you're going to be a good dad or a good friend, or, teach somebody something, or share a really good idea, or create something meaningful. But you're going to try to be yourself. You're going to try to actualize your potential and turn into what you could be. And you can't do that when you're just being assigned a belief system by the television channel you watch. You just can't. But I really think that's, and you learn that through studying things. And what tends to happen is, if you and I are arguing about something and we think the opposite about something, we do no matter what, we're going to just think the opposite forever. All we do is get better at arguing. We don't actually learn anything. We develop the systems for arguing, trying to make points. But in the end, neither one of us knows jack shit about jack shit. Like, the world, in most cases, let me rephrase this. I study martial arts. That's been my specialty for my whole lifetime.
What's your way of life as well?
It's my way of life. It's how I look at the world. It's how I interpret the world around me. The more that I've commentated 18 kinds of martial arts. I've commentated over 6,000 fights, like almost 600 fight cards. We did almost 400 just at Fight Network, 2 a week, 20 fights a card, me and Ramdeen. I've traveled all over the world, Southeast Asia and Russia and all these places to do that. And this is what I do. And the more I do it, the more I realize I know almost nothing about what's possible to be known about this thing. If that's true of my specialty, then what the fuck do I know about science or relationships or people or anything? I know, or politics, or I know nothing. And that isn't just, and that's useful to learn for myself, but that's not just applicable to me. Nobody knows anything. It's scary and it makes us nervous, but it's true. So if we know nothing, what the fuck are we arguing about? Like, why are we debating everything? How can you and I debate something if neither one of us knows anything about it? And the answer is, we think we do. We've tricked ourselves into thinking we know something about the topics we're yelling at each other about, and we don't. As soon as we realize, holy shit, I know almost nothing compared to what is possible to be known on this topic, which means that as I learn more, my view of it should change. If my view of it changes, my opinion of it would change. Therefore, why am I arguing with you about it? If we think that way, but we're a long way from there, I think.
I think the problem is so many people have a platform to speak when they shouldn't have a platform to speak. They shouldn't be allowed. Some people shouldn't be allowed to go on a keyboard and say anything online because they're one, they're not ready for the conversation, or two, sometimes they're just trolling people.
Yeah.
And it's trying to differentiate the difference between the two of the person who's a professional who knows everything, who should be talking, to a guy who just does it just to stir up shit. I mean,
it's a dangerous thing. It is, but one of the things when you study something, anything a lot, you start to learn, different philosophical ways to keep learning. Like you're either going to keep learning or you're going to be sure you know everything, and then you're done. As soon as you think you know everything, you're finished at your job, whatever your job is. So you're going to find different ways to keep learning and keep growing. And acceptance is a big one. I don't know what's going on, but whatever it is real. We currently are in a pandemic. I've accepted the changes in the world. I was telling you I was supposed to commentate the Olympics. That's not happening. Accept that. You accept it and you move on. And you figure out how to succeed within the truth of the scenario. And we must accept the fact that everybody does have a platform and they do have a voice. So we can sit there and it can bother us, man. If this guy shouldn't talk because what he's saying is stupid, but what I'm saying is stupid too. And so we all have a voice. So now we have to figure out how to make sense of that. So we're in this weird period of human history where we're all talking, and many of us are acting, and you see this all day. People are acting as if our opinions are all equal. Do you know anything about cars, about like engines?
Not really, no.
Me neither.
No.
Are our opinions of engines equal to a mechanic?
No.
No, fuck, of course they aren't.
That's why I take it to a mechanic and trust that when they're changing the Johnson rod, they tell me the truth.
The posi, like, the four-barrel, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know fuck all about that. But there are people who would, spend 5 hours learning about it, or learned about it because their dad told them a few things, and they'll argue with that mechanic, and they'll think that's sane. They will think that's sane. And that's going on right now with everything. And it is a problem, but it's real. So we just have to navigate our way through it. And a lot of times when you feel tense, like when I feel tension, or when I have like burnout's a real thing. I'll get burnout, and that's where you'll start to really not do your job well, not sleep well, not be at your best. Usually that happens when you look at something, it's bothering you, and you're trying to figure out how to fix it. It's like people are talking about car engines who know nothing about it, and they're arguing with mechanics. That's bad. How can we fix it? The truth is, I don't have a fucking clue how we can fix it. But so what you start to do, and then you'll freak out, and potentially freak out. And what you can do is slowly bring it back in and revert to the simplest things. It's like, what can I actually control? I can't control what those people say. I can't control that somebody who, literally never has a white belt in jiu-jitsu says about jiu-jitsu. I can't control that. I can't control how the masses behave. I can't control that there's fighting going on everywhere about everything. What I can control is, can I improve my own thinking? Can I become a little more empathetic? Can I be kinder? Can I get more sleep? Can I eat better? And you just go back to the basics, because the world doesn't need more experts in anything. The world needs more people who are really good at something, who love what they do and are kind.
Yeah.
So how do we be one of those? So, how do we ultimately find a way to be one of those?
You handle this stuff so well. Like I see when I seen people online, they say shit. You meet them with such kindness that to me, I'm like, how the fuck is this guy not telling this guy to go fuck himself right now? And you're just like, it really showed when you say someone showed you true colors. Yeah, I really saw your true colors, because I'm seeing you going, no, I forgive you. No, you're right. I'm sorry. Love you. Much love to your family and friends. Be safe. Like, you're just, and to people that you don't even have to. I'm even surprised you're responding to people that I don't think you should have to respond to.
Yeah, that's a mistake, actually. And I've kind of come to this sort of recent change in my thinking, and I'll change again, and I'll change again, and I'll keep trying to learn, and I'll try different ways to be at my best. But I'm very proud of the work that I do, and I'm very proud of the things that I make, and I'm proud that it entertains people and they like it. But I'm often even more proud when people are like, "You're the nicest guy on the internet," or "You're so kind," or "You're..." And again, that's maybe only 92% of the time, although that's a lot. by today's standards.
Yeah,
to be kind 9 out of 10 times. So I'm proud of that. And I feel good about that. And I feel like it's valuable. But then I started to really think about that. I got tangled up in it recently where I started thinking, I felt weight in that connection to people. I felt like it was a responsibility. I always, for a long time, as you go from 5,000 to 10,000 to 20,000 people who care about your work, I was like, I proudly answered every human for years. And I was so proud of that idea because I would think about it and I'm like, I know what it's like for somebody to take a second to talk to you. I know what it was like when, and I'm not Joe Rogan. Like I'm not 100th as 1,000th as followed as that. But I remember when Joe Rogan first sent me a DM and said, man, I love this breakdown you did. And I was like, that's fucking Joe Rogan. Now, now we're friends. I have a relationship with him. But at that time, I remember thinking that was so cool. And then when I did that for people and people would feel joy, and also somebody in the middle of their chaotic day watches my thing that I worked hard on, and I've worked hard over years to try to make something meaningful. And that person will take the time to go, bro, I really love that. That was me and my kid laughed at that or something. And I was like, fuck, that's so cool. If I can and I will tell that person, thank you. And I just so love that and have for so long. But let's say there's 250,000 people now that follow me amongst 3 or 4 key platforms. That's a lot of people. It's very, very kind, and I'm very grateful, and it's very cool. But to try to actually respond to all of them, and then what you start doing is you write 2 words, and then the next word pops up, thank you, and then brother pops up, and you click it. You're still thanking them personally, but you're giving them less now, or you, and then over time, if let's say that's 200 a day, it's a lot of things to do every day for 7 or 8 years, or 5 or 6 years growing. So then you would do it and I feel great about it. But somewhere 6 or 8 months ago, it felt like a responsibility where instead of feeling joy that I could tell somebody personally about how much, how they moved me because they liked my work, now I'm feeling like it's something I have to do. And that's not the same. I'm not being honest now. I'm just doing it because I think I should. And it's not as real as when I personally did it, but it's also impossible now because there's a lot more people. And I started feeling the weight of that. And all of a sudden I was like, is this making any sense? You got to go back to what the root is. If I can't thank that guy, Good Steve, if I can't thank Good Steve for doing that, but I can make better work that he enjoys, is that better? And I started really thinking about it. It's like, if I took 80% of every minute I spent, discussing and debating with 1 or 2 or 8 people and put all of that into getting better at what I do and doing better work and doing more better work, is that better use of that time? And will it be better for the people?
1,000%.
And it is.
1,000%.
1,000%. You're right. And it is. And so now I have to, now I've had to kind of stop that. And at first I felt so guilty. You shouldn't feel guilty for something you've done because you liked doing it that you stopped. But I did. I felt guilty. People would say, bro, I love your breakdown. And I didn't answer. And I would think, if I'm going to learn to use this time in such a way to grow and do better things, I have to not answer. And so I'd glance at the first couple of days. I'd be like, okay, you can't answer everybody.
I'm surprised you even read them. And the thing is, we were talking about you the other day. I had Woody on and Alex via phone. And we're talking about, basically it was a rundown of they're the best matchmakers in the country.
They're really good.
And then I wanted to talk to them because we conference every single day.
Yeah.
And it was because you answered the email.
Yeah.
When you didn't have to.
Yeah.
And when I shot you the email originally, I didn't even think you were going to respond.
Yeah.
But you have to understand, that's almost expected for somebody. When you have a high platform and you have a lot of people following you, people can't expect you to keep up with that. So if someone says, hey, Robin, great job, I like this breakdown, even though you popping on saying, hey, brother, thanks, man, it means a lot, much love. Even though that makes their day, don't think that the first second they put that, expecting you to say something.
Yeah. Well, I know
you can't
that
keep
now.
up with it.
I needed enough, and it's only a couple of weeks, but I had like really sort of, just something wasn't working with sort of the way I was interacting with the world. Like I was, at the root of it, all anybody's doing, if you're a modern creator in this environment, you make something. You make something that somebody might like. That's all it is. And all the other stuff, once it started to fatigue me or stress me or burn me out, now it was affecting my ability to make stuff that people liked, which is what I do.
Right.
Well,
Takes you away from the
took me away from it.
Well, you had I don't want to say a feud, but I've seen that you took a break because you were just like, mentally strong, and you're public about it. Say, hey man, I just need to step back for a second.
Yeah.
Like, what happened there? What do you think happened there?
So I think I was burnt out, and
if people don't know, can you explain it?
So maybe 2 weeks ago, I'd started that sort of edgy. You're going through life and you feel good, and you're I'm busy. Like I'm busy. And running all these platforms that, again, they should just be either for pleasure or to share your work.
You don't have a publicist or anything?
No, I don't have a staff.
I can't believe that you do all this all by yourself.
Yeah, I do. But that's what I love to do. So I would run multiple platforms, making stuff that is meaningful to me and meaningful to people, and share it everywhere. And then I also was working for Bellator, which is just a partnership I love, and working for TSN, which is the Canadian broadcast partner for the UFC. All of a sudden, UFC's every single weekend. So now I'm trying, and I hold myself to such a high standard. Like, I won't accept myself to shoot for a B+ job. If I shoot for A+ and I get C-, a C+, I'll accept that reality. But I cannot get up and just shoot to half-ass it. I gotta fucking kill it. And I've always been that way. So I'm doing that. Now we've got UFC every weekend, multiple things a week, because for a sports channel where you work in sports, there's no other sports, right? So they need to be able to cover something. So I'm doing that, making stuff for Bellator, going into Toronto 3 times a week, building multiple pieces a day, because I have to do it. Because if you're going to be good at anything, you have to do it. So I had to build it every day. I also love it. Like, if the world is chaotic, and I'm just going to sneeze 1 second. Nope.
Look at the light.
Yeah, exactly. If the world is chaotic and, there's a lot going on, if I take a piece of martial arts or animals fighting or something interesting, and I start to analyze it and do my thing, it calms everything. Like, that's my shit. So I would be doing multiple a day, and I started to feel that responsibility. Then I'm trying to answer every person, and it just becomes not doable. When that happens, all of a sudden you're eating poorly. I was going to Toronto 3 times a week, and I literally got drive-through every day. So that's each way. That's 6 times a week I was eating garbage food. Then you start skipping workouts, and then you're not sleeping right, and then you're feeling the stress. And all of a sudden, you're not feeling like yourself. And I'm a bit of a denier with burnout, because I want to keep going. So I'm starting to burn out. I'm starting to feel stressed. So all of a sudden, one night, a buddy of mine, his name's Luke Thomas, and he's a friend. He's a journalist who does some analysis. And I forget what he even said. It was something about, it doesn't really matter what somebody says, because when you are reacting badly, it's about you. Not about them. But it was something that at least I thought at the time was, meaningful. Because now you're applying meaning to all of this stuff, because it's all so busy. You have all these things. You're doing thousands of things. You're trying to accomplish a bunch of stuff. And he said something about looking at the kid who retired in his corner, and he was saying something along the lines of, if you disagree that was bad cornering, you don't understand cornering. And I remember thinking at the time, it's like, you don't know anything about cornering. And this is how I felt at the time. Where you're burnt out and you're kind of all wound up with stress. And I remember thinking, you've never cornered anybody or fought. Like, that's important. And so I start being like, hey, dude, you don't know anything about fighting, which is already way outside of how I normally behave.
It was very surprising.
Yeah, way outside of how I normally behave. But but on 3, again, we always try to find ways to explain our own behavior, to forgive ourselves. We don't always do that with other people, but we're always looking for ways to kind of explain our own behavior. But anyway, so I freak out and I'm telling him off, which, again, is very outside of my normal behavior. It's not how I look at the world. It's not like how I like to feel or to act. And I realized the next day, I woke up, I barely slept. I woke up the next day and I'm still mad. And I don't know what I'm mad at, because he's my friend and he's literally just doing his job. And I realized if I'm going to act that way, I have to, and that's not normal. I have to question my own mentality, my own mental health, my own behavior at the time. And I'm looking at it going, okay, this is not how you behave, and now you do. So what's wrong? Okay, You're not sleeping, you're working too hard, you're applying way too heavy a meaning to these things. You're worried about other people, what other people are doing, what other people are thinking. All of that is outside of my normal line of thinking. My normal line of thinking is you do you, don't worry what other people think. One of my greatest superpowers, the only superpower I have, is I don't really care what people think of me. And that's very, very powerful. It's been very powerful, and it's built me a really good life. Now I am, right? So I'm looking at that, and I feel and suddenly I feel tired, and I feel embarrassed, and I feel bad. And I felt good about that. I felt this is a good thing. If you just act, and I don't mean to be cocky here, but if you, or to be rude to the population. But all I did was one time act the way like half the world acts every day.
It's true.
And I felt horrible.
Yeah.
And I realized, none of us naturally act that way. We act that way because, all of those reasons. We're stressed and we're scared and we're doing too much and we're eating too poorly and we're not, thinking about the moment. We're not looking at improving ourselves. We're worried about other people, and we start acting that way. And I realized right then, I'm like, this isn't doing me any good. I felt really good. I felt really good about having one day or a couple of days of feeling like stressed out and angry and agitated, and realizing that's not the way I should be living. And I don't think any of us should. And I can't speak for anybody else, and I can't judge anyone else. And everybody's got a million things going on in their life. But I looked at that and I'm like, have to change something right away. I cannot live like that. I can't live freaking out at people. I can't live being upset about things that don't matter. I can't live being applying meaning and importance to other people's worries and concerns when I have to, be a good husband and friend and make work that matters and live up to my potential. I can't do that. And so I took a couple of days. I went away from the internet, and then I also took a couple of days to really look, what am I doing? I'm working 14, 15 hours a day, and it's not kind of working. It's like when I finish writing the thing, I'll thank 1,000 people on Twitter and get stuck into having communication with real people about real things, and it feels important. And then I'll leave that, and then I'll build 2 breakdowns, and then I'll take a break and I'll eat dinner with my wife, but I'm still doing shit on the and I just suddenly realized it's I don't judge technology or how we work, but that's not good. And I'm really happy to work a lot, and it's part of my identity to strive and do more, but that's too much. And so I made some changes, I made some changes in how, like I said, I just can't respond to everybody, no matter how nice that might be. I'm doing them a disservice if they like my work by spending the time arguing about some philosophical thing.
Such a great way to look at it. See how you adapt? You literally adapt instantly. A lot of people take years for this kind of growth, and then you did it in 5 days. Just take a break. Let me look at things, self-reflect. You own any problems that you ever, and like I said, you're so nice to people online. I'm like, how the fuck do you do it? This must be a full-time job just trying to keep up with people.
Being positive.
What would Joe Rogan tell you?
Yeah. He would be comments, actually, bro. I know, he couldn't possibly. I remember when I first met him, and I did his podcast, and it was really fun. And after we were done, I didn't know what Airbnb, Uber, none of that stuff was all new in California at the time. And I was like, "Can I get a cab? What's the address?" And he's like, "Bro, hey, let me get you Uber." And then, he says, it'll be 20 minutes, and we're just chatting, and he's on Twitter. And I said, man, you must just have, when you look at people talking to you, you must have so much. He's like, oh, I can't look at that. It's not possible. It's too much. And that was 5-6 years ago. Imagine him now, but, and you realize these things, and these are fundamental lessons. And I'm fortunate to have been taught them by smart, successful people in a variety of fields. There are some fundamental lessons that you got to figure out. And a big one is the things that kind of got you here are not the same things that'll get you to the next level. and figure out what that next level is. For some people, it's money. For some people, it's fame or success or whatever. For me, it's trying to achieve, really grow, and the more I do that, where I'm trying to learn, I'm trying to get better at my job, I'm trying to actualize my potential and really make something, learn meaningful things and share them. That's my next level. The things that got me here are not the things that'll get me to that level. And so something like communicating with every person that communicates with you got me here. A classic mistake is not learn that you have to make a change to keep going. And I didn't. I probably stayed at that. Besides physical and mental and emotional burnout, it took that. And fortunately, I maybe caught it. I could have been 15 weeks more tired and burnt out and stressed out if I hadn't been fortunate enough to catch it. But that very change had to happen, or else I'm plateaued and I can't get any better. I'm not going to make better work. I'm not going to grow. I will have plateaued and I can't get past it. And I just don't think there's really a limit as long as you figure out how to get past the plateau. So a big one for me is absolutely changing how I interact with other people. And I'm sad to do it in many ways, but if the ultimate result is I become better at what I do, which means a lot to me, then it'll be worth it.
Oh, you're such a great man.
Oh, man,
that's so
thank
cool.
you.
What do you think's happening with Bellator? How come they haven't been putting on any shows?
So I would normally, it's funny, we were talking about just being honest, right? So I'm going to just try to be.
I put you on the spot.
No, not at all. I don't think honesty is being put on the spot. But so my relationship, I love working for those guys. I fucking love it. There's like so many cool people, and they're young and they're creative and they're smart, and we get to make cool shit. Like when I talk to bosses or people who run digital things, I'll be like, hey, what do you think of this idea? And they're like, we should try it, which is fucking amazing. Right? So, and then I have a couple of it's been about 7 months. I've been sort of, it's not a full-time job, but it's an every month job. So where I am like dedicating at least 50% of my time to making something for Bellator. In the process of that, I've made a bunch of friends within the company, as you do if you happen to work with cool people.
Yeah.
And so some of them have told me like, hey, we're close. There's going to be a bunch of shows. But you'll hear from that and you'll say, when are we going to announce? And they'll say, well, hopefully next week. And then you'll hear something else. It'll be like, maybe the week after. So I'm not in a position, and I kind of am somewhat careful about this. I don't want official information that I can't share because I'll probably share it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, like for sure. It's exciting.
When you're like, yeah, it's exciting. And I'm honest. Like I like to tell the truth. Right. So if you say, and I find it's a good thing. So if you say to me, Robin, July 25th, we have this show on this date with these people. And then I might fucking tell you that. Like as we're sitting here, we're chatting, we're having a good time. I might tell you that. So I'm pretty careful not to get the real information. But what I have got is shows are going to happen. I think soon. If you asked me last week, I'd say this week we'll hear about it. If you ask me today, I think next week we'll hear about it. But I don't know. I've kind of thought that for a while. One thing I can tell you, this is entirely my observation. These are good fucking people, and they'll be too careful.
Yeah.
That's
smart, though.
They'll be too careful.
You're right.
They'll like, and this is something else I could sort of tell you from these conversations with friends. You'll chat with one and he'll be like, bro, like, I never thought I would be having 6-hour-long conversations with like infectious disease, PhDs from the University of California, but I did that today. Because Bellator and the UFC are very, 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 very different. And the interesting thing about that is whatever business you're in, you can see by getting close to a few things that the sort of the infrastructure of the business, the philosophy of the business can be dramatically different. So you're the UFC and you're Bellator. You put on fight shows and promote fighting and do fight content, and you put on fight shows and promote fight content. Sounds the same, but they're run differently. Their priorities are different. Their philosophies are different. The UFC is like, and I can't speak for them, but from the outside appearances, no matter what, we got to make this shit happen. And they're problem solvers. Good, for good or for bad. Dana White's thing has always been, there's nothing we can't fix. There's nothing I can't do. Just try to stop me. So he looks at this right now and says the same thing. It's like, fuck you, I can't put on shows. I'm putting on shows. Then Bellator is like, how do we take care of our people? How do we make this as safe as humanly possible? How do we do this in a way that we'll be proud? When history looks at how we did it, we'll be proud. That's more important to them. Mm-hmm. And that's a cool thing. I like working for a company like that. I like to be around people like that. So as a result, I think the UFC was doing shows for sure at the beginning of June, right? Mm-hmm. At least, yeah. These guys, if it's the beginning of August, that would make sense. These guys will do it at all costs, and these guys will do it as safely as humanly possible. Mm-hmm. They'll err on the side of safety. They'll err on the side of history respecting their decision. That's how they'll be. So, but internally, everybody's optimistic. Sounds like there's going to be fights, and they're working on it. They're certainly working on it.
The gyms are who I feel for in all this. Now everything's kind of slowly opening back up. We see Malcolm Gordon just got the UFC call. Jesse Ronson just got this. So 2 Fight Island, 2 Canadians who it's long overdue.
TJ Laramie is going to do a contender series. Yep. So if you are a fighter right now and you're coming off a win, and maybe not even necessarily coming off a win, usually that's a minimum requirement. But if you're ready, you're fit, you're a real legit guy or girl, you can fight in 3 weeks because 20, 30, 40% of fighters are unavailable. Some of them are sick. Some of them can't train, whatever. And these fights are not only going on, they're going on more frequently. Mm-hmm. So there are low level and brand new and guys who are, or girls who are out of fighting, or people who would be normally 2 or 3 wins away are now like right there. So it's with what's Sun Tzu in The Art of War? In chaos lies opportunity. Right? Yeah. It's chaos. There's chaos right now. But for some people, they will make sense of it. And the chaos, it doesn't matter what side, where you get your news and how that affects what you think is real and not real and what you're scared of and not scared of. No matter what, there's chaos. Mm-hmm. There's chaos. And in that chaos lies opportunity, you know? And so a lot of these fighters are getting to fight, and it's cool. When I get to chat to a bunch, one of the cool things I really love doing is when Bellator is streaming an event, I'll go on with a fighter and we'll watch his or her fight and we'll analyze it and discuss it.
Oh, that's cool.
It's really cool. It's really, really cool. And I've done 15 or 20 of them, maybe more now. So you start to really get
I've seen a couple of them. You did one with Cyborg.
Yeah. Yeah,
she's super cool. What was that?
She's really cool. She sent me a mask.
Does she?
It says Cyborg Nation. Cyborg's really cool. Yeah, she's cool. She's legit. Like when people are great at what they do, like just really, truly, truly great, they're special. You want to be around them. You want to learn from them.
Why do you think she got bum rap in UFC?
Well, that's interesting because it's like being brilliant, and this is a truth for all of us. It's a truth for I've faced this in areas of my job as I've gone through, and I think most people have in one way or another. Being brilliant or really good or working really hard or constantly getting better or whatever good things you do with your actual skill set is never going to be the only thing that matters. Mm-hmm. I fucking hate saying that out loud. Like, I hate that that's true. I really do. Wouldn't we all just love to live in a world where literally if you work super hard and become really truly good at something and keep getting better and have a good work ethic and all those things, that you should be able to accomplish stuff? But that's not true. Like how the business is shaped, who the executives are, what the weird, interpersonal relationships, these things all matter. These things all matter. And I think that's where that's where the root of it was, we have a tendency to try to figure out who did something wrong or who's to blame or whose fault it is. But I don't think that makes a lot of sense. Like, it's like, if you are friends with her and she says, Dana did this, this, and this, you'd be like, fuck Dana, I can't believe he did that. Or, any of the other executives. We usually use Dana White as to represent the executives of that company. If you're friends with him, I'm friends with both of them, but if I was talking to Dana, he'd be like, Dad, you wouldn't fucking believe the kind of shit she did. When you pull shit like that, and if you heard it, you'd be like, well, he's right. Like, because in the end, it's just an issue of people. How are they working together? What are their different expectations? Her expectations is, I'm one of the greats in the world at what I do. I have a lot of audience. I'm getting better. People pay to see me fight. People talk about my work. I have value. I want to be treated a certain way. And then the other side of the equation, which would be the UFC, they'd be like, we run this shit. We put on these shows. You're only big if we say you are, and et cetera, et cetera. And so so you should behave a certain way around us. So each of their expectations are what they are, and one or both of them are let down by it. And so what Chris Cyborg's looking for is somebody to treat her as a partner, somebody to appreciate her work. We're all kind of looking for that in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
You know? And so Bellator is that's their identity.
Because she should have got the Nunez
for sure
rematch.
Yeah, if she really wanted it. That's the other tricky thing. We often will discuss everything as if it's all real. What you said is real and that thing. I don't know if she really wanted that. Only she knows that. You know, I don't know if they didn't want to make it. Only her and they know that. But in the end, if we aren't getting along, if we aren't seeing things the same way, if we are in conflict, eventually one or both of us are going to get offended or upset or like lose motivation or, you know, and I've worked with both companies in a variety of ways, and it couldn't be more different. Like, man, at first when I started doing stuff with Bellator and I would get notes from like high up talking about how like cool my idea was or how big it was, I'm like, how do they even know what I was doing? Whereas, you know, at the other company, that just isn't part of their identity. That's just not part of their culture, you know? And the fighters maybe feel the same, but that doesn't have to matter. If you are, you know, Kamaru Usman or who just, Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns just, his fight fell out because he tested for COVID.
That's crazy.
But if you were Gilbert Burns before that and you asked him a week ago, he's like, man, the UFC's perfect. They give me a chance to fight for a title. I'm happy with the money I get. They treat me with the respect that all I want is a chance to do what I do. I don't care about it. So he's happy. So you have to find the right fit. I didn't understand that for a long time. I was trying to force myself. I had this misunderstanding that when you have a dream or a goal, that it has to be for life no matter what new information you gain. And I was like, I want to commentate the UFC with Joe Rogan and John Anik. They're both friends of mine. I love both of them. They love my work. You know, Joe recommended me to the UFC. That's what I want to do. And then the more I kind of did little bits and pieces within their business, I was like, I'm not a good fit here. But I didn't see that at first. I was just like, why isn't this working? Why don't like, clearly I'm in a position where that, you know, you start feeling these frustrations, right? When in truth, there's no good or bad to this. They have roles to fill. They have specific roles, the way they wanted it filled for this thing within this structure to be able to make 50 shows. It's very regimented and formulaic, and that's what works for them. And that's what works for a lot of big companies that do a lot of things. I'm not that guy. You know, I'm going to have a weird haircut. I'm going to dress weird. I'm going to talk weird. I'm going to think outside the box. A lot of the structures that I think are dumb when you say, all right, now, you know, give us predictions. I'm going to want to talk for 5 minutes about why predictions don't make sense. You know, that's because that's what I believe. And I'm going to also worry about the truth. Like, the truth is absurdly important to me. Like, I need to find the truth. And they'll say, well, just say, you know, it's a striker versus grappler matchup. You got 10 seconds. It's like, but it isn't. It's much more complicated than that. You know, and all of a sudden now I'm rocking the boat. I'm a bad fit because, great, you can sit there all you want pontificating about the philosophies of fucking Sun Tzu.
But if you want a cardboard cutout, get a cardboard cutout.
Yeah, and
right?
I'm not that. Right. So you don't want me. I'm not a good fit, you know? But my frustration would have been, don't you understand? I think I could affect the audience in a positive way that you're not currently doing, and I think I could help. I believe that. I could totally be wrong. I could literally go in there they give me 15 chances to do my thing, and the audience be like, that guy's fucked. I don't want to hear anything he has to say. I don't think that would happen, but it's possible. But in a structure like that, taking that risk is not worth it as much when you've got a bunch of fighters who are pretty good at what they do, who'll go in there, they'll give you their best work for 4.5 hours for $15,000 or whatever they pay them. They'll go home. They don't cause any shit. They don't argue about what you tell them to say.
Yeah.
They do it the way you like it done, and that's that. So you suddenly start to realize, wait a second, I'm not just a bad fit for them. They're a bad fit for me. I want to grow. I want to change. I want to learn. I want to try and fail. I want to innovate. I want to, try something that I'm sure is right and have somebody support me until you get to the end and realize, fuck, it's not right, and take that journey with me. You go over to Bellator or KSW or there's different places where somebody will say, yeah, go do that. Here, here's a small budget. Here's a small crew. Go try your crazy idea. Maybe it'll be good.
Let it go.
And the cool thing is for me, so it sort of ended up working out perfectly. I felt a lot of pressure and tension along the way, but it worked out perfectly because now I have that, and I love the people, and I believe in what they do, and I love the fighters. I didn't spend enough time watching Bellator to realize, of course, they have just as good fighters, in some cases better. These are just brands. The biggest difference is one brand has an extra zero on their value, and they spend that on marketing. So they have told a lot of the world, hey, we're the best. And they're really good. Their fights are great. The shows are great. It's entertaining. The marketing's really good. But they have convinced the world, and they convinced me before I looked closely, that they had all the best fighters. And people do it all the time. They'll be on the internet. They're like, when's this guy going to be in the UFC? It's like, there's 7 featherweights in Bellator that will beat all but the top 3 UFC featherweights. There's 7 of them. That's real. I'm an expert. I can tell you that's real. So now I was able to get in there, and then I still get to do UFC stuff because I work for TSN, which is the Canadian broadcast partner, and I get to, talk about
freedom of expression, to kind of be you. Well, you're an artist by trade.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and they like that. TSN likes that. The TSN are Canadians, and it's fun because I'm around. Literally, when you watch a producer, and these guys' jobs are heavy. They got to produce hockey and football and baseball and all this shit. And you watch a producer and you can see him, he'll say it and you see it. He's trying to change things. He's trying to try new things. In the biggest mainstream sports channel in Canada and one of the great sports channels in the world, and my producer's trying new things all the time. You don't see that most of the time. So I get to do that in the perfect environment where I can still cover a Jorge Masvidal fight or still cover, Kamaru Usman fight, or still cover when Khabib comes back and these big name things, but then I can try to explore and innovate and try new things and study in different ways and try to share new ideas and follow my curiosity with Bellator. So I got a perfect I have a perfect combination
to perfect your craft.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the Toronto show.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Man, it was so good.
What'd you think?
Yeah,
it was a great show.
Really, really good show.
The atmosphere, the fights delivered.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen you since then.
Yeah, it was honestly, at that time when you were in there, the look of it and everything. It was as high end of a non-UFC or Bellator show as I've ever seen. By easy, don't you think? You've been to a lot of shows. Yeah. I know it's your show, but you you knew that night that you were putting on another level.
It had a different vibe to it, and I think it was a big thing for me to go to Toronto. That was the biggest thing. It was. I mean, I did out of city before, but going to Toronto to me was born and raised in Toronto. Bringing it home, I got to run into a lot of friends that I hadn't seen in a long time. So it was kind of like a reunion at the same time. And at the whole moment, and I think it's Alex Caparucci's fault why all COVID broke out in Toronto because he was sick. So I'm going to keep blaming him.
Yeah.
But I'm only kidding.
Yeah, we can blame him for a lot of stuff.
But ultimately, the show was great. We had a ton of momentum. UFC Canada was in the house.
Yeah. That'll be. That should be a Fight Pass show immediately, right? The Fight Pass. People know, who on earth outside of a few of us that literally, I came up doing small and medium sized shows. Outside of a few people at our level and at grassroots level in Ohio and grassroots level in Detroit and wherever, who knows more about the quality of shows as they're coming up than the UFC Fight Pass people? Because they put on so many of them. They see them from all over the world, so they know. If they were watching that show, and I'm sure they were, they know, and that's where that probably belongs. Although there may be other options too. You may even have, by the time we're back up and running, you may even have other options too.
Yeah, because it was I was depressed, man.
Yeah,
I was depressed
when it was over.
Yeah, because I felt like there was so much momentum. Everything was. I had big plans. I still have big plans. It's just everything's on hold right now.
Yeah.
So now I'm in that little limbo stage where I'm like, fuck, man. Am I gonna get the same fighters back? Is everyone or is everyone going to be in shape? The gyms are being super affected. So it's like this industry is volatile as it is. You know that, right? It's not
when we were talking about Bellator taking the time. Part of that time was those things. It's we could, force fights to happen on June 18th, but are any of these guys and girls training well enough to be safe and to be at their best and be able to really do what they do? And you're right, there'll be all of that. But if some of the fighters will be gone, because right now, when you have the best fighters outside of the UFC and there's a demand for fighters and there's 5 shows in August, 5 UFC shows in August.
That's crazy.
You got to they're going to take some of our fighters, but there's also the next wave of martial artists are even better. Like I don't know how long this can continue. It's reliant on a lot of things. It's reliant on money and business and consumption and audience and all these things. But as long as martial arts grew more in the last 20 years than it probably has in 2000, because things grow when you bring money and reward, commerce and business and all of that. And all of a sudden, coaches can make a living training professional fighters, and shows can make a living giving fighters jobs, and fighters can make a living fighting. So all of a sudden, all of that accelerates the growth and accelerates the learning. It's just, it's just an organism that's constantly changing. And if 15 people got into a gym from 20 to 40 and they pushed each other and they learned, martial arts in that gym would change a lot. But now there's 15,000 all over the world changing weekly, learning new things, seeing it on TV, seeing analysis of it, watching in slow motion, hearing different perspectives, having different coaches. And it's like an arms race of growth. It's like an arms race of evolution. So you're going to lose, 6 of the best fighters, but there's going to be 12 young geniuses coming up right after them.
Any of them stand out in your head from that night?
Tony's
a fucking man.
Tony is special. There's special, and then there's special of the special.
Yeah.
And when somebody it's so much more than how you punch and how you kick. Just like a rapper or a fucking painter.
Because you've known Tony a long time too, right? Tony and TJ.
Yeah, they were. I mean, Tony. How old's Tony now? 22.
20.
20?
Yeah, he's 21.
Jesus.
21. I think.
21. I mean, we
21.
saw him and knew of him at 15, Yeah. 6 years that's a veteran experience. Like, if he was a 24-year-old then and now he's 30, with the amount of experience in those 6 years, you'd say, oh, he's a young veteran. He's 21 and he has that.
Yeah.
And he trained with the best of the best that came before him. He'd spar with Mark Hominick at 16. You know what I mean? But it is so much. As we're trying to study anything and we're trying to peel back the layers, we go in layers. Layers is probably the simplest way to put it. We start and we say, what's the technique? Oh, he punches and he kicks and he moves his feet. Then we say, maybe where did he learn it? Oh, his coach did this and he developed that way. There's all these different things, the technical, the strategic. But the more of it you study and the more you understand it and the more in depth, and when you do it yourself and you move your body and you connect what you saw to what it feels like to how hard it is, and there's a feedback loop of looking at it, studying it, asking about it, training it again, trying it, then looking at it again. That feedback loop multiplies your understanding. Once you do that enough, you realize it ain't about punches and kicks and fucking, combinations and timing and distance management. That's incidental. All of them can become good at that. It's about who they are and what they can do and what their minds can do and how they contextualize these scary and intense moments. And so you see a Tony, it's like, of course his hand, and even his opponent to
Claudio Ledesma.
Yeah, Claudio, to be there in round 5 the way he was, he's a special martial artist. We get distracted with, this guy's a black belt in jiu-jitsu and this guy's got amazing spinning attacks, but that doesn't matter if you're not a brilliant human capable of these incredible things under duress. And you only understand those, truly understand them, when you do experience them. That's why, 4 fights wasn't enough for me. I didn't understand. It was why 7. Like, at 9 fights, I had the real experience where I could, and I'd had all the different ones where I couldn't hear anything, where I was panicked, where I heard my coaches perfectly, where I had blood in my eye, where, I felt like I had to tap out but didn't, or I felt like I didn't have to tap out, but did, and all these different experiences, you start to understand, the cliche of saying you're fighting yourself is so true. It's so true. It's the whole thing. A lesser man than Claudio was out of that fight in the third round. A lesser man than Tony, and there have been many that are that good, but then when the other guy's still there in round 5 and suddenly they can't breathe and they're a little tired and there's a guy on their back, they tap out. That's what we're searching for. Seeing how somebody checks a kick and counters with a left hand is just a tool to be able to see who they are in these magical, scary, special moments. And there was a lot of that night. There was a lot of it. And maybe it's because the environment was so cool. And maybe it's because so many of them were at home. And maybe it's because it felt big. And it felt, for a lot of those fighters, most of those fighters, that was the biggest environment they'd been in. The coolest place, the biggest show.
I got to meet Dennis Kang.
There you go.
Like, how cool is that? Like,
that's an OG.
Yeah, and he walked by and he said, hey, he talked to me like he goes, hey, I'm Dennis. And I go, you're Dennis fucking Kang. Yeah. That's what I said. You're Dennis fucking Kang. How are you? And he goes, man, what a great show. I have all these guys whenever you want, like this. And I'm like, I was starstruck the fact I go, this is Dennis Kang just talking to me right now. I took a selfie with him because I was like,
So
I didn't even listen to him.
No, you can't.
I was
because
just starstruck.
I don't know the exact year, but I'm going to guess 1999. We could look it up for sure. 2000. That guy's in Korea someplace fighting some killer that he didn't know anything, didn't know what the guy knew. That guy could know the death touch. Dennis Kang's on a flight from Vancouver with probably his jiu-jitsu coach and somebody who boxes a bit to fly to Asia to fight in a cage for $600. You know what I mean? Like, those guys created all of this. I've always, when I was coming up first and I wanted to do this and I wanted to bring something useful and I wanted to be useful and I wanted to commentate and I wanted to do that, I came up fighting. And I played in a band before and I wore eye makeup and leather pants and acted crazy on TV and stuff. And a lot of these guys were just like, who the fuck is this guy? And he's not welcome here. And even then I understood and I made sure to learn to just accept it and understand that I'd feel the same way. I love martial arts as much as these guys. And if somebody like me came along, I'd roll my eyes and be like, who is this guy? But it was really important to me, really, really important to me to earn the, at least acceptance and later respect of Justin Bruckman and Dennis Kang and Mark Hominick and Joe Dirksen and Patrick Cote and all these guys who,
paved the way for Canadian martial arts.
Yeah, I looked up to these guys. I was a fight nerd traveling around in a rock band, finding old Sam Stout fights to watch, or so many of these guys got. Paul Lazenby. Paul Lazenby was a pro wrestler who fought in Pancrase, and he didn't even and he did some martial arts, but not that much at the time. And he's in an arena in Japan alone fighting. I wanted those guys to see that I would contribute something valuable. And now a lot of them are Claude Patrick and Sean Pearson and these guys who came up real early, and now a lot of them are friends. And at the very least, they see that that this is my life. And
Claude texted me.
Yeah.
He didn't go to the show, but he texted me and he said, what happened to our Toronto guys? I think they were I think a lot of Toronto guys lost on that card. If you
I seem to remember.
Everyone from Quebec came and Powell beat De Freitas.
Yeah.
Claudia beat Melissa. So it was a lot of the out of town winners. Toronto didn't do so well, but I'm like, no, they didn't really do that bad. But I remember the first time Claude Patrick ever came to one of the shows, and I was like, "Hey, Claude Patrick." Yeah. You forget.
Yeah, he might smile at us saying this, but he also might just be like, come on, guys, or whatever. But I'll tell you, when I first, honest to God, the breakthrough moment where I understood fighting different was I had about maybe 10 to 15 privates with Claude. He gave me a good deal too. And Claude doesn't give good deals, so I took that as a compliment. But I still paid, and I paid every time, because I was hiring him to give me knowledge, and he fucking gave it to you. When you hire Claude, he will give you 100% because he's looking at it. It's like, this is my job right now. Is
He's
to
so
train.
honest.
He's so straight. Like
He
he's
just
exactly
gives it-
what
he's
he seems.
He's a real one for sure.
He's exactly what he seems. And I've always admired him. When he fought, and I got to commentate one of his fights. I think Martin Grandmont, and I fought on a card with him in Edmonton, which was really cool. But I've always admired the way he fought and the way he coaches. It's like high percentage or fuck off. Like the choice you're going to make in every situation is going to be the high percentage choice. Unless, there will be variables. The guy's tired, the chance, a real chance is there to do something that you do, great. But otherwise, it's a line of high percentage choice thinking. And when you study a guy like Claude, and there's others like him, but, the best like that, when you study that, that's a way to live life. Mm-hmm. You're going along, things are the way they are, you see how something works, you make a high percentage choice. What would be the best choice I can make? Okay, I made that. Oh, cool, now this goes to here. Now at that point, what's the best high percentage choice I can make? And Claude trains his guys to make those. Mm-hmm. And when he taught me for those classes, those privates, and I brought in Boyan a couple of times. Boyan?
Yeah.
Yeah. Boyan was my partner. And other times Claude would just physically be my partner. But I remember sitting there thinking, oh, fuck, this is how the best think. Like this, when we get to here, we're either going to go here or we're going to go here. If we go here and he does this, then we're going to try here. And I remember being like, oh, fuck. Not, let's learn to punch and let's learn some jujitsu and let's get in and try all our stuff. He was, and I remember it was something I used almost every fight I had. We're going to get in on the leg this way, and then we're going to reach. You're going to find a little handle on his pelvis, on his hip bone over there. If we get that handle, we're going to shuck and we're going to take the body lock, either the back or the front. That thing fucking worked forever. And then I saw him do it a million times. When I did it, it worked. When I watch guys do it in fighting, it works. When I watch the UFC, it works. It works because it's one of those really high percentage choices. And I was fighting low level guys. Claude would fight a higher level guy. He might have the correct response. That's okay. Now we have two other high percentage choices. And once I saw it the way he saw it, it changed the way I looked at things. And I remember when he was cornering me and it was my fourth fight. And I had beaten the guy already. It was my first win. I was fighting my fourth fight. And they said, do you want to fight this guy again? We'll give you $1,000. And $1,000 was a lot of money in the fight game. It is now. And it was then. And I was like, well, I already beat him. It's my only win. I think, I got a couple of Edmonton wants me to fight. And they're like, we'll put up our bantamweight title. And I was like, get the fuck out of here. Like of all the things I considered could have happened when I was fighting, actually fighting for a title in a show that was a real belt in a real environment, that they had other champions, and those champions were real fighters. Mm-hmm. And it was like, holy fuck, I can actually fight. Okay, I'll do it. So, and Claude wasn't traveling with me, but he was working with me on the system. He's like, look, you fought him, we watched it, I know, we know where he's at, and this is what we're going to do. We're going to throw this, this, and this. And then if we can get to here, we're going to go to the body lock. When we press that body lock, we're going to go down to the ground. And we drilled it over and over. Got to the body lock, or get to the hips, close the hips, throw them down. You'll be in half guard. When you're in half guard, we're going to use this pass. If it doesn't work, we'll use this pass. When you get to the mount, drop an elbow. If the elbow doesn't work, drop a second elbow. He's going to give you his back. When he does, we're going to go like this. So, I'm in there, the fight, and we're doing it over and over and over and over
add
again.
Somebody else
over
punching you in the face,
exactly.
add pressure,
all of it.
Yeah,
and fear and anxiety. And I wasn't, till the end, I wasn't, the stresses of performance. Although I'd been a performer all my life, I didn't realize how big a variable that was. So thing starts, the guy's over there. I kind of get going. They say start. I throw two punches and I get to his waist. I push him under. I think it was actually a couple punches and then get to the underhook and push him to the cage. Did it. Drop down, grab his hips. Did it. Squeezed them together, threw him on the ground. Did it. And I remember thinking, holy fuck. Then I go to half guard, slide into mount. Claude was literally like, put your hand on his forehead, and as you slide down, slash with the elbow. I put my hand on the forehead and I can hear Claude's voice. If the first elbow doesn't work, just hit him a second or third time. Eventually, he'll give you the back. I lean up, slash the elbow, and he gives me his back. And I literally was thinking to myself, get the fuck out of here. And then he gives me his back. I go for the choke. I jump up. I choke him out, and it's over. And it was literally exactly how Claude rehearsed it with me repeatedly over and over.
He's a bit
over.
of a mad scientist.
He really is. He's brilliant.
Yeah.
He's brilliant.
He's unbelievably smart. He's intimidating smart.
Yeah.
Because I see like the things that when he talks about things, politically, anything, you're just like, holy shit, this dude's really, really smart.
Yeah. So I'm on top of this kid, and then I'm in the mount, and I'm hearing Claude's voice. We're gonna post up on his forehead, and we're gonna slash across his face. And if he doesn't give it to you on the first slash, he'll give it to you on the second. If he doesn't, he'll give it to you on the third. And I post up, and I slash his face, and he just gives me his back. And I literally, and this is what ideally when you're in the sort of that state where you're flowing and you're in the right mode to be performing at a high level, I was doing it, watching myself do it, observing it happen, and in control of it, and being able to let my mind explore other things. And that's when it's going well. And I literally was hearing Claude's voice, and I literally thought, get the fuck out of here. I was so shocked that it went exactly how we rehearsed it and how Claude laid it out. And then there was a couple of variables. I get his neck, something changes, he stands up, and then I jump onto his back and choke him out. But yeah, and they don't all go like that. And no matter how good your coach is and how well you've trained, most of the time you go to do the first two things you planned, and something changes, and then nothing is the same. But on that one time, it was just like it. And it was strange too. It's like, it's over, and you don't really know. You're kind of shocked, and you're happy, but you don't know what to feel. And then all of a sudden, I forgot completely about the fact that there was a belt, because it just wasn't a part of my even imagination that I would win. They called it the Canadian bantamweight title. It was a regional belt, but it meant a lot to me. And then they put it on me, and I'm looking down, I'm like, this is not how I thought this was going to go. Not that I didn't think I was going to win, but that I'd ever have that experience. But those experiences, man, they mean a lot to me now. That belt sits in my studio. It's on TV whenever I'm on, it's just sitting there. And it's not the belt, and it's not that show, and it's not the title. There was no, they created, and it represents the whole path. They created that, they had titles. They just didn't have a bantamweight one yet. He and I were like, I had a losing record, and he barely had a winning record. We were young guys. They created it just to get me to be on that show against a guy who talked a lot of shit after he debated whether I finished him. So it was good from a promotional standpoint, which is why it happened. I didn't earn it because I was the champion, but I ended up in an environment where I got to win this thing. And now, again, it's not that night or that title, although I appreciate them. It represents the whole path of it, the good and the bad and the painful and the scary and the embarrassing. And like when you lose, it can be humiliating. You can cry with a pain that you haven't, both my parents are alive. Both my brothers are alive. Like, I haven't lost, a family member, knock on wood. But so I'm very lucky to be able to say this, but the most anguish I ever felt was waking up in a morning where I had failed miserably in a cage by myself in a hotel room alone. I've never, ever cried with as much pain as that.
It's that intense.
It was. And there's a lot of variables. We're all so much more complicated than we think. We want everything to be easy to explain. I didn't realize till later, I had zero thyroid function. I had hypothyroidism from overtraining, in fact, which is very similar to when I was talking about burning out from too much work. It's the same mindset. It's a reaction to being overdriven, working too hard, wanting something too bad. And we're taught when we're young that more is better. At least I was. Working harder is better. The more you do, the harder you work, the better it'll be. But that's not ultimately true. But so I had zero thyroid function. So it wasn't for me, although it's all part of it. But for me, it wasn't just the pain of failure. It was also, when your thyroid isn't working, it affects your brain chemistry. So there was other factors involved that I found out later, but that's all part of the same thing. I wouldn't have been the only guy who suffered overtraining syndrome, and it affected his pituitary gland and his thyroid. That's a common thing. So yes, my experience of that anguish has many variables, but I wouldn't be the only one. That's a common experience to have, is to be, it's a low, very, very, very low level kind of brain damage where you've either through concussions or overtraining, it's affected your brain chemistry in a way, and it affects your emotion, it affects your happiness, it affects your sleep, it affects all those things. So, all of that together, plus failing on the co-main event of a fight at home in Winnipeg,
That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, and alone, waking up the next, I fucking cried. I remember being on the phone with my wife and just hearing in her voice the way that I could hear that there was nothing she could do to help me feel better, and that was causing her pain. That's real. And again, like, I'm not the only guy. You ask 100 fighters about their worst loss, and 30 to 60 of them will describe that in some way or another, at least to the people closest.
Well, sometimes losing when you're on top all the time is what really, the comeback. Use TJ Antonio as a prime example. Losing a fight, getting severely injured, and then coming back being completely different, having grown, having seen what it was like to lose, and they're experiencing this at such a young age that it's improved them dramatically. So you got to fail.
For sure.
It's just failing with the repercussions of getting punched in the head or getting knocked out or choked out.
There's a lot of easier ways to fail than in your underpants in a cage fight, choked out in front of your mom, right?
Yeah.
Like or with a leg broken in half or whatever. There's a lot of easier ways to take that journey of trying and failing and growing.
Yeah,
but
we were just talking about the leg break fight the other day.
Yeah.
Because it was so traumatizing.
Yeah. Oh,
you remember that?
Yeah. I like that guy too. He bounced back.
Yeah, he bounced back. He tried some amateur stuff, didn't work out in his favor, but
he got back to life.
Yeah,
broke his leg in half.
And on something that you never thought somebody would bounce back from.
Yeah,
but
So, but these are the things, right? Like, when I do my job now, I know I do it a little differently. I do it with like a passion and like some people say an almost religious appreciation for fighting, and I don't quite agree. But it is my lifestyle. It is my philosophy. It's the lens through which I view the world. But if you haven't fought, you might criticize a fighter. This guy did this wrong. This was a mistake. He should have done this better. But if you do fight, you understand that all of that is nonsense.
Why do you think that guy quit?
Which one?
On the stool.
He quit on the stool because he was overwhelmed. So it's called amygdala transfer. Basically, you want to be operating in your prefrontal cortex, right? This is where we are right now. We're just sitting around. We're interpreting the world. We're talking into a mic, and our prefrontal cortex is at work. There's a lizard part of the brain, the amygdala, and there's other areas of that brain. It's not simply that. This is a bit oversimplified, although it sounds complicated. Where if a saber-toothed tiger jumped up right now, we would run for our fucking lives with our hearts pounding out of our chests, just doing anything to get out of here. And that's why we're in this room. That's why anyone's watching this or listening to this, because our ancestors, limbic transfer, that's what they call it, limbic transfer. Because our ancestors had that reaction, and that's why we're still alive. That's why our species exists, because that is a primal part of the brain that says, get me the fuck out of here.
Fight or flight.
Yes. And you train yourself to be able to use some of the value of that, the sympathetic nervous system. There's some value in that. It gives you strength and sometimes added focus, and there's a lot of value in it. But when you just transfer all of your brain activity into that primal part of your brain, you panic. So in that moment, if that happens in a fight, you tap. Right? So, oh my God, I got to get out of here. And that's not uncommon. It even on a UFC card, it probably happens at least once out of two or one out of one, where shit's going bad. The guy or he covers up, or he's over. He's panicked. He can't do it anymore. If it happens between rounds, and you're not injured, we now have a minute to be able to try to get you back into your prefrontal cortex. And if you had a coach who is specifically trained in it, he could do it. And then you'd go back and you'd fight and you would do well and you'd be so happy you did.
Pull it together, man. Pull it together.
Yeah.
You've seen those corner videos all the time.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
A guy burping and he's like, oh man, I'm done. I'm tired. But the coach just goes, look at your opponent. Look, he's done
tired
too.
Like, there's a lot of different ways to do it. But he was in full panic. And when you're in full panic, if I'm in full panic and you're in my corner, please try to talk me out of it. But at the end of the round, if I'm still panicked, don't send me out there. And that's what he did. So, and it was perfectly done. It was perfectly done. But of course, people react to it emotionally because that moment, we all are afraid and we've all like been terrified of things. And that moment of seeing a guy half naked, panicking, we want to get him out of the moment. Never mind the fight. We want to get him out of that moment. We want to hug him. Look at this guy's freaking out. Like, let's get him out of there. And hey, bro, don't worry about it. You did well. And by all means, we can do that. But if you're my coach, I'm going to ask you to, under all circumstances, try everything to get me through that because I'm going to be so glad I did, if you can. And he couldn't. So he quit. But you had on a prospect show, there was a guy who retired in between rounds, I recall. There was. Yeah, it was after the second round. And it was either in Windsor or Sarnia or London. Have you done shows in all three? Yes. Yeah. I can't remember which one. But you had a guy, heavyweight or a light heavyweight. And in between rounds, he said, I'm done. I don't want to fight. I'm done with fighting, I think he said. Well, we'll figure it out. It doesn't matter.
Oh, yeah, let me think, yeah.
It doesn't matter. Anyone who would judge that has no true understanding of what's going on.
What it takes to be in that
spot. Like, that's the thing. It's like, that's the other thing. So the coach will want to help him get through it. You would hope that you'd beg your coach to do it the day before, and you afterwards you're like, why didn't you help me? Because you want to get through it, but you're in a primal panic state in the mind. But we have a minute, a no consequence minute to help you, if we can.
It'd be cool to hear what his take is on it now that he's completely.
He said exactly this. Yeah. He did talk about it. He talked about it.
I missed it.
Yeah, he did. And it was basically this. It was like, this has been a part. Quitting too soon has been and not showing up on big days has been a part of his story as an athlete. And his coach knew it, and he was glad that he did it, and he thought his coach did everything right. And because of course he did, right? Of course he did. The people who, if you got 100 fighters and coaches, 97 of them said, good job by the coach. Too bad he couldn't help him, but he tried his best. And if you got 100 people who never fought, never coached, never trained, 97 of them are like, this is an outrage. This is disastrous. That coach should. Yeah, exactly.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda.
But that is what this is. Back to something we talked about earlier. We don't know fucking anything. We don't know anything. We're primitive. We're primitive, primates meandering through the world trying to make the best of it. The biggest problem we have is we think we know shit. We don't know shit. We don't know shit about anything.
Everybody's judging everybody.
Yeah, and we're angry and we're arguing. We're arguing shit we know nothing about. If you've never coached, you've never spent time with coaches, you never fought, you've never been in that situation, then how on earth are you arguing about that? And didn't it occur to you when you are that the 50 people you're arguing with are people who've actually been in there? I saw my boss at Fight Network at TSN when we were talking about this, Jason. He was the one saying, the reason people get so emotional is there's something very, almost scary about seeing that guy there in that moment, and we all have like a visceral reaction, whether we know anything about it or not. We think we do. We feel something. We see it clearly. They should stop it. And he said that Daniel Cormier and Ariel were having a conversation. I didn't get to see it, but he said Cormier said the exact same things we're saying right now. But Dan's a really, really sweet guy, and he's really charming and likable, and I think him and Ariel are really good friends. And the way Jason described it is he was going, man, I hate to say you have to do this to understand, but and I know Dan, and I know I can just see him. I hate to say you have to be a fighter to understand it, but you do. He's like, I hate to say it, because it sounds arrogant, and it sounds elitist, and it sounds rude, and it sounds like you're being critical of somebody else, but you're not. It's just most of the truth of anything is only available in the experience. And we can argue that till the end of time. But I could watch 100,000, heart surgeries. I watched 700,000. But if I didn't do it, I don't know it. I really don't know anything about it. I know how to watch it. I become an expert at watching it. I become an expert at interpreting what I believe to be true. I start filling in the blanks. I think it's mechanical. I start to see it as a series of steps. And I remove the fact that it's like the real issue of heart surgery is the surgeon, is his experience, is his anxiety, is his twitchy hand, is his own
performing under pressure.
Exactly. That's bigger than the
doing
slice.
what he was taught.
Yeah. And even though he did it 100 times on one day, he's shaking, and then he gets in that thing. He didn't prepare himself in the right way, and all of a sudden he's somewhere else.
His wife yelled at him in the morning on the way to work.
He got hit by a car, but it wasn't that big a deal, so he didn't think anything of it. He normally has 2 coffees, but he had 5 because he only had sleep, 2 hours sleep. Everything suddenly changed. And from the outside, if I watched 10,000 surgeries, I'd literally be going, he did this wrong, he did that wrong, he did that wrong. He didn't do anything wrong. He went through the process of it as best he could, and weird curveballs happened within it. He tried his best to solve it. But that's the reality. But it's very difficult. It shouldn't be controversial to say, if I've never driven a car, but I've watched 1,000 cars drive.
NASCARs.
Yeah, NASCARs. Yeah. That I know what it is to drive a NASCAR. That shouldn't be controversial. It shouldn't be, but that's a reflection on how we've all started to believe that our opinions, regardless of experience or what we've learned or where we've learned it or what it means or whatever, that they're all equal. And I truly believe the biggest thing that made me happier and slowly start to get better at a lot of different things in my life was trying. You can't always do it. Often you fail, but trying to suppress my own opinion, trying to resist my own natural tendency to draw a conclusion. The longer you can resist forming an opinion and drawing a conclusion, the more you can learn. As soon as we hear something, and it's not because we're knowledgeable, it's just a feature and a bug of our brains. You say something, I form an opinion. I may know literally nothing about it, but I will form an opinion, and that opinion will shape my thinking. If I can fight that, just fight it as hard as I can, and it takes practice, but the more you fight that desire, that nature to form an opinion, the more you can learn, unfettered by the opinions.
It's great advice.
It's hard, and you fail a lot, but anything worth doing, you fail a lot at in the process of trying to do it, but it's powerful. Then all of a sudden, now you're not looking to prove what you believe or be right. You're looking to learn, to continue to learn. It's hard, but it's incredibly empowering, and it's incredibly eye-opening. It's why I can, and maybe I'm wrong, but I do look at 2 sides arguing, and most of the time they're identical. They both think the other's crazy, they both think the other's stupid, or they both think the other's wrong, or they both think the other has been tricked through news or information or indoctrination. And it's usually true of everybody. It's usually true of all of us, but, what do I know? I just study martial arts, right?
All right, man. You're a beautiful man, Robin. I'm going to cut this short. I got another guest coming on.
Yeah.
I really, truly appreciate you. I love you. I respect you. Taking the time out to come in, it means a lot to me. I haven't seen you since the last fights, man, so it was good just to shoot and catch up, have a drink. And
yeah, it's nice just to sit and chat. Like I said, it's cool to be able to share ideas and stuff, but I really just wanted to see you.
You're
I just
amazing.
wanted to see you.
I love this guy. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Robin Black.